Holy mackerel, is it time for yet another of Pat's personal portraits? The answer is a hearty yes, with an old friend many times on the God shows, and we have talked about facets of theology on radio and television. Pastor David Felten from
the Fountains United Methodist.
Which is where?
In Fountain Hills, Arizona.
It seems only right. And you also have an educational arm.
Yeah, we're my colleague Jeff Proctor Murphy and I have a little publishing company called Living the Questions that is producer of DVD curriculum for adult Bible study classes that deals with a lot of the things that we talk about when I'm on the God Show and that kind of thing.
And perhaps what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
Because we have talked about Christmas in Turkey this month, and we've talked about Christmas in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be kind of neat this Christmas week to talk about Christmas in Bethlehem. Mm-hmm. Was the Christ child born in Bethlehem, in a manger, and in December?
Let's see, probably not, unlikely, and no. But having been in Bethlehem on Christmas Eve a number of years ago and being surrounded by Israeli troops and in a crush of Christian choirs all trying to outdo one another singing Silent Night, it just doesn't have the same kind of ambiance that I guess I grew up with thinking about. I think the text is pretty clear that both Luke and Matthew wanted to make sure that Jesus was born in Bethlehem according to the prophecies, but they worked their stories in different ways. So Luke had them living in Nazareth and then having to take the donkey ride of note to Bethlehem. But in Matthew, they actually live in Bethlehem. And then they have to escape from Bethlehem to get away from the despot Herod.
So what are we to believe then? If there's a question as to where the actual birth took place, what town it took place in, what else can we believe? I understand that there's no way that it happened in December.
Probably not, but I think the important thing is to not dwell and get hung up on the details of the historicity of it, because they are such rich stories with such great meaning metaphorically. And I think one of the meanings behind the Christmas story that's often left out is the value of vulnerability. I mean, we all talk about that saccharine kind of idea of the vulnerability of the little baby born in a manger and all that kind of thing. But really, both the gospel writers that tell a birth narrative focus on making the Holy Family refugees and emphasize that vulnerability. And I think that's an important thing. Luke has them be refugees because they, under order of a despotic occupying military power, have to go from Nazareth to Bethlehem for a census, which is nowhere in the historic record. Matthew, on the other hand, makes them refugees by having another despot, Herod, who's in the model of Pharaoh, threatens the babies to be killed, kills the innocents. So the family escapes under cover of darkness to Egypt. So they're refugees in a foreign land, and they come back later. And so I think that's an important element, that both writers thought enough of the importance of putting the family in that vulnerable situation. And when you think about the values we emphasize at Christmas, that's one that we really need to think about, because the UN has said that the number of refugees right now in 2011 is at its highest level in nearly 15 or 20 years. So there are people all over the world that are refugees right now, that are vulnerable, that are forced out of their homes, away from their families, from any of their support systems. And it's one of those things that we can talk about when we talk about that part of the Christmas story that's often left out. Like
I'm guessing that you're going to also blow the three wise men out of the tank too, and the frankincense and myrrh and gold. I mean, what about them?
Well, we only think there were three because there were three gifts: frankincense and myrrh and gold. The Catholic Church gave us names for them later on when they were doing nativity plays that needed someone to say, instead of wise man one, well, let's call him Casper. So we really don't know. And again, the important element for Matthew was to acknowledge that even these what would have been considered pagans, these non-Jews, have come and recognized who Jesus was before anybody else did. So there's that element that kind of says, look, everybody else is going to recognize who Jesus is before you people do.
Okay, but you're a pastor and a dad.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we going to tell our kids? Let's talk about A Christmas Story, since they love all of these things that you say probably didn't happen.
Right.
What are we going to tell our kids?
Well, they also know that Aesop's fables didn't happen. I mean, we don't have talking animals, but, you know, one of the things that we do with our kids is we do what's age appropriate. And just like with my 6-year-old twins, who are still in the throes of everything Santa, we love that time. And now that my 12-year-old is beyond that, he loves being in on the story of Santa and everything. And it's just about making that transition as we grow up. The problem with the Christmas stories is that many adults don't make the transition from thinking of these stories as tales, as metaphors, to they keep thinking that they're history. And that would be like having 40 and 50-year-olds that are still clinging to the idea of Santa Claus being real.
Yeah?
I'm sorry.
Well, if you really have felt...
Medic!
if you have felt that this personal portrait has ruined your holiday, don't blame me. His name is Reverend David Felten, pastor of the Fountains in Fountain Hills. You may send a card. This is KTAR.com.